Guys, what's happening? I hope you guys have really enjoyed the shooting videos we've done in the last couple of outings to the range. I've certainly enjoyed doing them for you. In fact, I've just gotten back from the range, tested out our data on previous engagement for an upcoming long range match that we shoot this weekend. So super pumped for that. Hopefully we have a good showing. It's a team match, so Skulk and I are going to be shooting together, and I will be taking the camera stuff with, so we'll be doing a video of the match. So super pumped for that. Anyway, so every now and again I give the People of Impact, the POI, which is basically a community of guys supporting the channel on Patreon, and I give them the opportunity to ask some questions. And as always, they've asked some banger questions. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Matt asks, I recently gained access to a range with props and steel out to 1,000 yards. First of all, that is freaking awesome. To get a range where you can shoot to distance and have props and stuff available, it is bang on. So I'm super stoked for you. I wish we had a range like that out to 1,000 yards with props. That is something that I'd really love to build here in South Africa. Time will remain to be seen if we do that. Now, to maximize time and ammo, because obviously ammo is scarce and expensive, while practicing, in your opinion, is it more beneficial to shoot full stages under time, so 8 to 12 rounds, or to practice building different positions and only firing 1 or 2 rounds before starting over? Now, I'm going to go for the second part of your question. If you guys want, let me know in the comments down below by simply leaving thumbs up in the comments, and while you're at it, smash the thumbs up button below the video. Then I can do a session of a video on how to optimize your time at the range. Now, something that I don't like doing is shooting full stages when I go out and practice for a various number of reasons, but 2 of them that you have mentioned, cost and time. Just, it's also a little bit overwhelming. So I like to sort of circle back to the age-old saying, at least it's a saying here, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. And I try and take that same approach when I do anything in life. I try and figure out what are sort of the elements that will make me good at something, and then I get really good at those elements. And then once I've got a firm grasp on those elements, then you can start stringing them together and adding, practicing 2 at a time or that kind of thing. So if you guys want, I'll do a full video at the range of how to maximize that sort of training time for positional shooting. Alrighty, next question. We all learn differently. With that in mind, what are the 3 most difficult aspects of precision rifle shooting for you to learn and go on to master? That's a really good question. It's actually quite a tough question. It's something that I'd have to give a little bit more thought of, but off the top of my head, something that new shooters struggle with a lot is time management. And I was guilty of that too. In the beginning, you're so overwhelmed with everything going on. You're literally just trying to make it to the end of the stage. The problem we run into there is people are rushing things and learning really bad habits. So if you can take one thing away from this video, it's take your time. Don't worry about the time. Okay, so take your time, build solid positions, and make those hits count. Because to rush through a stage, get off all your rounds, but you've thrown away a few silly points over the course of 8 to 10 stages. A few silly points puts you bottom half of the pack. So take your time, make your hits count. The next thing would probably be wind. It is ever changing. It's always, I don't think anybody will ever master the wind. At the end of the day, we have our kestrels and everything, but that is just a guesstimate sort of at our location. And we take that information and apply that to sort of over the range. So it's something that I'm always trying to figure out ways how to do the wind better and to try and remember how the conditions felt and what my result was downrange. The next thing for me, and I've said this in many videos before, is I always try and have fun. I don't take the sport very seriously. I don't take myself seriously. When I'm actually under the clock, I'm serious, but as soon as I'm done there, it's all back to fun and games, and it's banter and the things. And I often see, there's always guys that take it very seriously, and then sort of a negative element starts creeping into the sport at that level, and I never want to go there. And I find that if I'm having fun and I'm cracking jokes with Skulk or Ruan or whoever's in my squad with me that day, the whole experience is just so much better. And then if I end up doing well, then that's a bonus. But for the most part, I'm only serious when the timer goes beep or when the guy says, "Are you ready?" I'm serious for the next 90 seconds. and then it's back to being a clown. So Ash asks a question, and I know actually which props you're referring to. How do you tackle a stage that has exceptionally small targets placed out at distance and you're required to shoot off a prop that doesn't work well? For example, it's shaky, weirdly positioned that you can't operate your bolt. Yeah, so honestly, I try and look what the shooters do before me. I try and look for things that they struggle with. I try and think about a better way to attack the stage if I need to shoot something left-handed to manipulate my rifle better. But then oftentimes, this specific stage, because we were squatted together there, if we're thinking about the same stage at Darling, there was the stage where you really couldn't manipulate your bolt. And in that example, I literally just hung onto my rifle for dear life and reached around and hoped my rifle didn't slide off the bag. So every now and again we do get presented with these things, and honestly it's just a matter of, I've been in that position a few times before in the last sort of 5-6 years shooting, that kind of just figure it out. And the more comfortable you are with your equipment, the more you sort of know what you can get away with and where you can start getting a little bit creative. I've so many matches had to pull triggers with other fingers because I couldn't get the grip angle in, and whatever I can get in that trigger guard, as long as we're on target, I've clacked rounds off and had successful impacts like that. So sometimes it's just a matter of being a little bit creative, thinking outside the box, and don't necessarily think, I have to pull the trigger, for example, with, my right index finger. I'll get creative, shoot left-handed, and that's something that I spend a lot of time with, is figuring out how to shoot left-handed. So now when we get a left-right stage, it's really not a question of, it's not even difficult for me anymore. In fact, sometimes I go to matches and I will shoot a normal stage, just left-handed, for shits and giggles, that I still practice that skill. So Travis asks, how often do I see trace through my rifle when I am the shooter? It depends. It sort of almost goes back to the neural network thing we were talking about in the other day's video. Once you realize how to do something, it's almost like that connection is made and you now know what to look for. So if you've never seen trace before, next time you're at the shooting range and somebody's shooting a target at beyond 300 or so yards, stand directly behind them with binoculars or a spotting scope, and sometimes even if you're lying close next to them, but then just remember the trace is going to enter from the side that the guy is shooting on, you should be able to see that sort of distinctive vapor trail of the bullet. Now, when you're shooting yourself, it's much harder to spot because obviously your rifle is recoiling, and under that recoil, your sight picture and everything changes, and very likely by the time you're sort of settled again, the bullet has had its effect on the target. Now, it's obviously much easier to see trace when you're shooting very far because you have longer time to sort of settle under the recoil and then pick up that bullet in flight again. It's also dependent on the conditions. I've even sometimes seen the sun reflect off the back of the bullet, the bow tail in your optic. So a lot of factors play a role. What I have noticed is, for the most part, early in the mornings when it's a little bit cold, it's quite humid, there's a bunch of moisture coming up off the ground because there's dew or stuff in the grass and the things is wet, then we tend to see trace a little bit better. From a positional point of view, it's obviously much harder to do than versus shooting prone, but again, the more you know what to look for, the easier it is to see. It also helps to shoot your bullets slower. It's much easier to see a bullet flying at 2,700 feet per second than to see the same bullet flying at 3,200 feet per second. So because you just have so much more recoil to deal with, it's flying so much faster, so by the time you settle, it's very likely there. Whereas a nice slow bullet, I tend to pick up a little bit more. So I hope that helps. As a percentage of when I'm shooting, I see trace, I don't know. I really don't know, but it's something that you get better with time. Something that helped me is shooting paper with a rimfire at 100 yards. So find a nice big A3 piece of paper, put your little sticker in the middle and zoom your scope so that you will see mostly white of your target, and you'll actually see that little rimfire bullet because it's flying subsonic. You'll see that little bullet flying and you'll sort of understand what to look for. So perhaps try that, shooting paper at 100 yards and watch that bullet fly, and then try and take that over to a center fire rifle. Now, remember, you're not going to see this at 100 yards. It's just too fast. So go to 300 yards. The further you go, the higher the probability of picking up that trace. Next question from Josh. Pete, I currently shoot a 308 for matches. So can you help me decide between a 6mm and a 6.5 Creed for my next rifle? Pros and cons. Now, there should be a bunch of these types of videos on the internet. My school of thought is going to be this. It depends what you want to do with your rifle. If it's going to be mainly a match rifle for precision rifle, I would probably lean towards the 6Creed more. 6mm bullets are the flavor of the month. For high BC bullet, they're still pretty heavy. If you're shooting like the 105, 109s, 110 A-tips perhaps even, you could still shoot them relatively slow. In the 6Creed more, I wouldn't shoot them at the 3,100 feet per second due to the reasons we mentioned before. Very difficult to see trace, more recoil, all of those things that go with it. So I'd probably lean towards the 6Creed more. If I was going to have a dual purpose rifle that I perhaps want to do the odd bit of hunting with, I'd probably lean towards the 6.5 Creed more. In South Africa, if you're shooting in South Africa, it's really difficult to rebarrel rifles, as you guys know. Although if you're buying a Hawa, you could just go buy a new Hawa when your barrel is shot out. Then you have to take a bit of barrel life into account too. 6Creed obviously going to burn its barrel much quicker than a 6.5 Creed. Having said that, I don't think you're going to go wrong with either. So I hope that helps you a little bit make your decision. But I mean, 6Creed's going to hammer for you, 6.5 Creed's going to hammer for you. Should be good to go either way. Next question is from Rudy, and it basically goes, how do we manage our dope when we're shooting these matches? Now, it can be quite overwhelming. Let's, for example, say you've got a stage with 5 different targets and the wind is, gusting. Then you might have to write 3 numbers down for every single target. And if you're looking at that, all of a sudden, there's a little page of paper or whatever you've chosen to manage your dope on. It can be quite overwhelming. So what I try and do, I try and draw nice thick lines, okay, and I give myself columns so that I can at a glance know, right, I'm on that target. But again, it is something that you have to practice. It is overwhelming initially. You're dealing with positions, time, everything. You want to make sure you don't flag anybody or break any range rules. And now you got to remember, okay, I need to go from here to here to here. So what I try and do is before the stage, we all rock up. We do the stage briefing and then we work out our dope. Okay, it's more, we shouldn't actually say dope, we should say firing solution. Because in a lot of cases, that's what we're working out, a firing solution. And then I'm basically in for the next, while the next shooter's going or while it's sort of my turn and I'm getting my things ready, I'm constantly looking at that and I'm going, okay, cool, I'm going to start with 2.4. So I'm going to have 2.4 on my rifle when I'm ready to go. And I know my next target is 3.5 or 3.7, and I try and memorize at least the elevation dials that I know as soon as I've engaged that target, as I'm coming off to build my next position, I know where I'm turning that knob to and I'm looking for that number, and then you can be efficient like that. And as with anything, the more we do something, the more you shoot off positions, the more unconsciously competent you become. Okay, so you're building a position without even thinking about, I need to do this, I need to do that, and all of a sudden that frees up more mental resources, more mental RAM, if you will. And that's going to help you deal with sort of those little factors, all the small things you're having to consciously think about at the moment. A lot of these things, the more you do the sport, those kind of things go almost onto like autopilot mode. And then you can actually free up the resources to go, okay, cool. I feel the wind gusting on my face. I need to take my higher wind value. Engage, okay, and then move on from there. So I hope that helps you guys. Thank you very much to MDT, Modular Driven Technologies, mdttac.com, for sponsoring today's video. I'm going to be running that all black ACC in tomorrow's long range match. I'm very excited to take you guys out and along for that journey. I have to pack cameras and everything now. I got a lot to do. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment, leave more questions. I really enjoy seeing your comments, and sometimes I try and take comments and I potentially make a full video, so you never know. Guys, I appreciate your support and everything. This has been an amazing journey, so I just want to always circle back and say thank you to everybody that has supported the channel, and thank you very much to the people of impact. I'm going to scroll all of their names and things here that are supporting the channel. We are shipping merch every quarter to the guys that are part of the POI, so super pumped on that. Anyway, love you long time. See you on the next one. Bye.